Hello, today I'm going to go over the ballerina spin, how to get into it, and a really flowy, pretty way to get into it if you're a little bit more familiar with getting into the ballerina spin itself. So for those of you that might be unfamiliar with the ballerina spin, this is the spin I'm talking about. Here. And getting into the ballerina, just setting it up position-wise, I tend to teach my students to set up like this, where they're hooking their inside leg in front of the pole. Some people teach the ballerina with the outside hooked in front of the pole. It doesn't really matter. I just find that people have a little bit more success hooking their ballerina with the inside leg instead of the outside, and just kind of sticking with that pattern when you're first learning the spin. So another thing about setup on your ballerina is also it's a pretty contortionary movement. If you have trouble with mobility and flexibility, you might actually have quite a bit of a problem getting into your ballerina spin. But one thing that I always suggest if it's your first time attempting your ballerina is to kind of set it up so that the pole is coming in to the side of your abdomen, not your ribs. So that's on my ribs right now, but it's in the side here on the obliques, because I can really smash the pole in here and I'm not going to feel like I'm in a lot of pain because it's not on the bone. So if that's okay, you can kind of see how I'm kind of tipping my chest forward. That's just giving the pole more access to my side. If I elongate my body up here and I start placing that pole on my side, you can see that, yeah, I'm able to get it onto the obliques, but I'm also hitting my ribs. That's why when you're initially setting up your ballerina, I think if you have a little bit of a tip, you can see how that nudges the pole right into the muscle rather than on the bone. So now that that's set up, I'm going to go ahead and swipe open this inside leg, that's the one on the inside of the pole. I'm going to open it up, and then it's going to hook in front. So I'm hooking it on kind of the exterior of my calf, and I'm kind of poking my butt out. You can see it's really wedged back there. And then I'm still bearing weight on my outside leg here. So from this point, if this is too tight, you can even come down a little bit lower, and I find that helps people get a little bit better positioning. But if it's your first attempt, it's normal if it's not feeling amazing getting into this. I taught a lot of men this spin, and they tend to not like it because their mobility is not quite as good as the average female. So if you're a guy trying this out, or you're just very, very inflexible, this next portion is going to be a little bit more uncomfortable. But once you've hooked that inside leg, you want to take now your inside arm, and it's going to go into a pistol grip. So pistol grip, the index finger is pointing down the barrel of the pole, and then I'm going to wrap my fingers around the rest of the bar. So that finger is kind of in this space that my knee is opening up to on the inside leg. So I'm able to engage through the tricep. I'm not completely locking out. I'm not disengaging entirely, so I'm not putting a lot of load on that shoulder that would be really unhealthy. I'm keeping everything engaged. So then the next part is we want to take the outside hand, and it's going to reach up into a twisted grip. So that reach up, that's usually where people have the most trouble, is getting that reach, because it can be, again, a little bit of an issue if you have trouble with your mobility. So in that case, what I would suggest is try not to keep your chest facing the ground. Have your chest roll up as much as it can to the ceiling or to the side of the wall. Then look up at your ceiling, take your palm open, and then reach straight back for the pole and grab like that. but your hand's gonna be all the way up there, so your arm's gonna be extended. But if you keep it low and you're kind of just, obviously if I go like this, it's gonna be very difficult for me to get that hand back up on the pole. But again, if I roll my chest open towards the ceiling, you can see that my back is also rolling up against the pole. Then it's easier for me to reach that top hand into that twisted grip. And if you're unfamiliar with that twisted grip setup, I'll just do it a little bit closer. So I'm just gonna hook that leg and pistol grip down here. I'm gonna open up, and this hand's gonna open up to the room. Palm's still gonna face the ceiling, and it's just gonna reach straight back, fingers wrapped around the pole. And that's my twisted grip right there. And here, same thing, I don't wanna put an unhealthy amount of load on the shoulder, so I don't wanna like just sink here. I want to keep everything engaged. It's not like a super strength heavy movement, the ballerina. It's a little bit more mobility and flexibility based and just getting your body in the right position. And the other side, it's the same thing. It might, and it's very normal that the other side is way less comfortable to get into. I personally like my other side a little bit more, but of course, as you know, practice both sides. Usually what I'll have my beginners do when they're first setting up their ballerina, they've never done it before, is we'll just initiate the spin. So we'll set it up like we did, getting the pole on the side, and then placing those hands where they're supposed to go. And I'll have my beginners launch themselves either forwards or backwards. So let's say I want to go forwards. You're going to see my outside foot. It just kind of pushes its way forward, and then I'm lifting that leg, and the leg can go ahead and lock my pole in an X shape. And then the same thing, if you want it to be a reverse spin, you'll just see me push backwards instead. And you can play with the positioning of that leg. You can go behind, or you can place it in front, or you can have it fully extended. Either way. When you're getting out of the ballerina and you want to make it look not like some weird exit, what I suggest is calmly coming down out of your ballerina 1 foot at a time. So let's say I go backwards and I did a little ballerina spin like that. I'll usually just take my outside leg, I'll extend it out fully, and then you can see my foot drags to slow my spin. So all my weight's on that outside foot, and then I release the inside one that's hooked. And then here's important. You want to push your butt out first. So butt first, and then I release my upper body. If I didn't do that specific release pattern, then I'm gonna look a little bit more, it just doesn't look quite as nice if you release all of your body at once, right? But I can make it look a little bit more flowy if I release my hips and then my hands come off. So then let's say that you want to spin into your ballerina, which is going to come from a reverse grab that looks something like this. And you want to just involve hooking that inside leg instead. That's going to require you to actually be able to hold and get into your reverse grab spin. You can kind of cheat your way into it though. You can kind of jump it back if you're a very beginner and you're just starting to learn that. So my hand placement is really similar to the ballerina, getting into my reverse grab spin. I'm going to take my inside hand into that pistol grip, and then the twisted grip is going to happen up top. I'll just scoot down so you can see. So palm up and then reaching back. I'm just going to scoot up a little bit. So I've got those two grips in place here, and I'm pushing and engaging with the bottom shoulder, and then I'm pulling up with the top shoulder. If you've never done a reverse grab spin, I would suggest practicing it now if you do want to learn how to reverse grab spin into your ballerina. This can be a little bit tricky for people at first, so this is kind of a different move all on its own. But if you want to work your way up into it, what I suggest is set up your reverse grab spin like I'm doing right now. Take that inside leg, and then you're gonna have the intent of hooking it behind. And that's gonna bring you into your ballerina rather than just setting it up like we were doing before, side against the pole, placing the hands. So if you want it to look a little less mechanical and work it into a combo, but you don't quite have your reverse grab spin, then this would be a good way of kind of cheating your way into it. Just kind of, I tell my beginners, think only about this inside leg. Really focus on what you want it to do. So I really want it to hook on the front of the pole. So when I'm a beginner and I'm trying to learn this, my intention is going to swing my butt back and hook that leg around. That's my goal when I'm getting into this. My goal as a beginner is not to float into my reverse grab spin, because a lot of beginners don't have that skill yet. That's an entirely different video. Just going into a very beginner flow state into your ballerina, you just want to think about not aggressively jumping, but a gentle and controlled kind of push and jump back with the inside leg. So I have all my weight bearing on the outside foot and leg, and I'm going to push my hips back, and I'm going to open up that hip and hook. And at that point, again, I can bring that outside leg behind me, or I can have it out in front. And then again, to come off the spin, I'm going to drag that outside foot. Second foot comes down, push my hips out, and release myself. If you are someone who's a little bit more comfortable getting into your reverse grab spin, my number one tip for using your reverse grab spin to get into your ballerina spin is the positioning of your hips. And that goes back to the very beginning of the video where I was talking about placing your side into the pole. If you have your reverse grab spin and your hips are too far forward and you're trying to get into the ballerina, it's gonna look like this. It's very hard for me to hook that interior leg because my hips were so far forward, like this. It's hard for me to hook the leg if my hips are all the way to the side or even the front of the pole. That's why when you are going into your reverse grab spin, I'm just doing the other side, you want to have the intent of pushing your butt back behind the pole. So that's going to look a little bit more like this. See how much I'm pushing my butt back? So that I can bring that interior leg around and get a much easier hook of the inside leg, rather than if my hips were far forward. So again, on the other side, keeping my butt back. Okay. And I even hold it. This is good for practice. Hold putting your butt back. And then hook. It's way, way, way more comfortable for me to get that hooking leg behind the pole. Again, if my hips are behind the pole. And you should be able to keep your hips back there. It shouldn't be kind of like this really hard battle for you to keep your hips back like this and then they keep flying forward. Your ballerina transition from reverse grab might not look that great because you are struggling in that area of maintaining keeping your hips behind the pole while you're flying backwards into your reverse grab spin. So again, if you're not quite at a place where you can keep your hips behind the pole and you can't actually keep your legs aerial, so the legs are not dragging on the ground, but you're able to pick them up and keep your butt back behind the pole. If you can do those two things, then you can flow into your ballerina spin pretty easily from your reverse grab spin. But again, if you're having trouble keeping your hips back and your feet are just automatically hitting the ground, which would look something like this, right? Then you probably need to work a little bit more on the reverse grab spin component of that transition rather than just hammering down the ballerina. Because everybody, I think, can get into the ballerina if mobility is on your side. Again, that cheating way is to just push that hip back and hook. You're still setting up in that reverse grab spin, but you're not actually maintaining the reverse grab spin, and that's okay when you're first learning about combining those two spins together. And if you guys want an entirely different tutorial on how to get into reverse grab spin, whether on static or on spin, let me know in the comments below, or if you have any other moves that you've been dying to learn, I am more than happy to make a tutorial about them. Just let me know. If you like this content, make sure to press the thumbs up button and give me a subscribe if you would. And I will see you all on the next one.